this thing on. Just kidding. Welcome to the first ever Oklahoma City Renegades Podcast. I am your host, at least for this week, Christian Bachgalupi, wide receiver and social media guy. I don't know if I have an official, there's official title for what I'm doing, but I do the social media. Anyway, this episode's going to be pretty rough, but they'll get better as we go along. I don't plan to be the host of these every week, but we'll see how things go. But let's get into things on the podcast. We're going to start off first by talking about the first game of our season when we took a trip to Buffalo, or wherever that is, for Queen City. Unfortunately, that game was a loss, 38-31, but that was a war, back and forth. First half was great on both sides of the ball. Offense was moving, the defense was doing well. And then the second half, the offense really had some trouble. Defense came up big, had a pick six, had another pick that set us up for a touchdown. And then after that, the offense went stale. The QCC offense started getting going. They converted two big third and longs, which if we could have stopped them on one of them, I think that game goes our way. But unfortunately, they didn't. We also had a kickoff return that had a fumble that cost us. It was really a game. I mean, I'll go over how I feel about all the games at the end after I go over how all the games went. So then we go on to week 2. We go home, have our first game in Oklahoma City, and we face the Lexington Miners. That game was a 23-0 loss on our part. It was a lot closer score than 23-0 would suggest. The defense, again, did very well. Really, their last touchdown was kind of junk points because we were in a position where we still had a shot. In the fourth quarter, we needed to, go down the field, score a touchdown, get the ball back, and score another touchdown in a very short time. But we got a fourth down. We didn't convert. Deep in our own territory, they got the ball and they scored. So really, that was more of a 2-score game that we were right there with. Obviously, the offense was a problem for us. We would move the ball, and then one bad play would kill the drive, whether that was a sack or a tackle for loss or a penalty, stuff like that. And then we'd punt. And the defense did well, but you can't ask the defense to shut out a team when the offense is losing the time of possession battle. And again, that left me with a different feeling than the QCC game. But again, we'll talk about that after we go over all the games. Then finally, before the bye week, we were back on the road up to Vancouver to face the Legion. And this game was not good. There were some bright spots, especially from the defense with 3 picks, 2 from Thomas Rahman Jr., I believe it was. Excuse me. But the final score was 66-3. When after the game, a couple days later, on the streets are talking, they had one of the Vancouver Legion players, or I guess he's part of the people who do strategy, and it pretty much sounds like they came in trying something. Definitely a lack of respect for our team, but you got to know what our team is. And I'll go over our team situation here in a minute. No, I'll just do that now. Our team is pretty much an expansion team. That's kind of how we had to restart the Oklahoma City Renegades. I mean, Oklahoma City Renegades were original 6 team, went along and then ended up being sold, and then came back this year. But the problem is, teams start recruiting for the next season during the season before. You know what I mean? So people are probably already recruiting for next season, season 25, during this season, season 24. Especially about mid-season when people start asking their players, like, who's going to stick around, who's going to leave. And then, like, oh, shoot, we're going to have to fill in this receiver spot. So they, like, look around, or they had someone they had talked to prior who may have been looking for a different spot, but your team wasn't that team right now, but now it is, just for example. So you got teams with weeks and months head start on recruiting, and then you have the off season to recruit as well before the free agent frenzy. The deal to finalize the sale from Louisiana to Oklahoma City was like in the middle of the off season, like hardly any time before the free agent frenzy. And on top of that, most expansion teams get some kind of extra picks in the expansion draft. You know what I mean? We didn't get that, which is fine because we're not a true expansion team. We are a team that moved cities and changed names. But again, we didn't get any of those players from Louisiana because I'm sure they knew about the deal. And, we couldn't recruit them until the deal was over or confirmed, and they had all found different homes. And then when it came to the regular draft, we were stuck with Louisiana's draft picks, which they had traded their first round pick, I believe, because we didn't have any first round picks in the draft. We had two second round picks. We were able to trade one of those to get an additional pick. But 3 late round picks is a lot different than what an expansion team would get, which is extra picks, early picks. So you got to look at what Oklahoma City is. We're big disadvantage. And it's not anyone's fault. It's just a situation. Which puts us in a situation where the goal this year, since we're not like a lot of expansion teams are nowadays in other leagues, and even this league, where if you look at the last expansion, how good those expansion teams were, whether they're first year or second year. I'm pretty sure all the expansion teams have made the playoffs at least once. Maybe not. Did Indy make it? Anyway, the goal of this season is to show we're a well-functioning franchise, and that all we need is a few pieces. And if you look at our team, we don't have a single offensive lineman or non-generic offensive lineman, which is a huge disadvantage because as the season goes on, the difference of how good our generic offensive line is, which will not be progressing because they're a generic offensive line, versus teams' defensive lines who are getting better every week as they progress. And then we also have holes. We don't have as many players as other teams. Again, part of the disadvantage of when Oklahoma City Renegades became official and we could start trying to get players. Now, we are adding as we go along. We just signed Dallas Sanders to play wide receiver, so that gives us 2 wide receivers. Though, to be fair, McMichaels, the tight end, has done a great job playing the wide receiver position. Leads the team in receptions and receiving yards, which is really our strength. Because not only do we have less players, we don't even have the minimum amount of players you're supposed to have. A lot of our players are very young. They'll get better, the team will get better, and we're really building for the future. But you never know. We'll look at division standings here in a second, and I'll point something out then. All right, let's look at the standings. As you can see, Denver and Minnesota top the division 2-2, followed by Indianapolis, who's 1-2. And then the league has Chicago at 4th at 0-4, though we're 0-3. They have us in 5th. So you could argue that we're really 4th. Either way, it's 0 wins to 0 wins. But though I say we're not built, like the goal of the season isn't the championship, it's not outside a small chance. Playoffs aren't out of the question either. You look at previous divisions in this league, or even any other leagues the NFL it's happened to, teams with losing records get into the playoffs. If we can beat the Lycans this Sunday, we'll be one game out. Well, depending on what those other teams do this week. But reasonably, we could be one game out of first place after the end of this week. We'll see what Denver, Minnesota, Indianapolis, Chicago do, as well as us. The Lycans aren't having a great season, so they're a team we think we can beat. Whether we do, we'll see. But you never know. But that's one of the things I wanted to point out, or that's the main thing I wanted to point out, looking at this division. This division didn't start very well. There's 5 wins among 5 teams after 4 weeks. So, playoff-wise, the path is definitely right now is probably winning the division. All right, so this Sunday, it's us versus the LA Lycans. LA Lycans 1-3 on the season so far. They got the dub during our bye week. So standings wise, it's hard to say they're better than us because they had that extra game to get the win. We're going to their house, unfortunately. This is our 3rd away game. Just means more home games later. LA is interesting because statistically, they're not terrible. They're middle of the road. They have a couple of good statistics team-wise, but they have trouble getting wins. There were some interesting things I saw matchup-wise where it looks like they're a lot better in the pass, which kind of feeds into us because we're very good getting interceptions. So hopefully that plays into our hands. Defensive-wise, they're pretty good, actually. So we're going to have to figure something out to get our offense going, finally. Having Dallas Sanders now as a wide receiver is going to help. We'll see what we can. And it helps in the fact that they haven't seen him, so they can't game plan for him and what we're going to do with him. So, we'll see how that goes. That game is Sunday, 8:15 Central Standard Time, 9:15 Eastern Standard Time, PM, by the way. But we want most of these podcasts to be about 10 minutes. We've gone over that now. We're going to wrap this up. If you're watching this, we will post, or we'll show player statistics on the screen as the music plays us out. If you're just listening to this, enjoy the music.